There was once a woman who used to live in the shadows of her fears. Every time opportunity knocked, she hid behind hesitation. Every time a dream whispered her name, she turned away, convinced she wasn't enough. Fear was not just an emotion for her. It was her language, her habit, her home. But life, as it always does, had other plans. One day, she realized something profound. Fear was not her enemy, it was her teacher. Every fear she ran from was trying to show her where she had room to grow. The fear of failure taught her to prepare harder. The fear of rejection taught her to value herself. The fear of loss taught her gratitude. Slowly, she began to understand that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to walk with it. She started small, speaking when her voice trembled, trying when her hands shook, showing up even when her confidence didn't. The same doors that once intimidated her began to open. The same people she thought were beyond her reach became her allies. The same dreams that once scared her became her reality. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It came with tears, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But with every scar, she grew wiser. With every fall, she grew stronger, until one day, she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Because that woman was fearless. Not because she had no fear left, because she had learned to use fear as fuel. She had become the very thing she once ran from. Bold, confident, unshakable. The storms that once scared her now bowed before her calm. The uncertainty that once froze her now became her playground. She became the woman who spoke with grace, walked with purpose, and lived with power. She became everything she was once afraid of, not because life became easier, but because she became stronger. And that is the story of every person who chooses courage over comfort, growth over fear, and faith over doubt. Remember, fear will always visit you, but you don't have to give it a room to stay. Walk with your fear until it becomes your strength, because one day you'll realize you were never afraid of the world. You were just afraid of your own greatness. Fear is not truly an enemy. It is a mirror reflecting the parts of ourselves that we have not yet learned to face. When fear rises within us, it is not a signal to retreat, but rather an invitation to understand where growth is waiting to happen. Most people see fear as a wall, something that blocks their way forward. But if we look closely, that wall is transparent. It shows us what lies beyond it, in there. Even if we aren't ready to step through yet, the things we fear the most often point directly toward the areas of our greatest potential. Fear is like a compass, quietly directing us toward the path that will stretch us, strengthen us, and ultimately free us. When we are afraid to speak up, it's usually because our voice holds the power to influence. When we are afraid to start something new, it's often because deep down, we know we are capable of creating something extraordinary. The mind tries to protect us by whispering, "Don't go there, it's too risky." But the soul whispers louder, "Go there. That's where you'll grow." The difference between those who transform and those who remain the same is not that one group has no fear, but that one chooses to listen to the whisper of the soul instead of the noise of fear. Fear mirrors our insecurities, our self-doubt, and our past disappointments. It reminds us of the times we failed and fell short. In there. But that's where the beauty lies, because fear brings to the surface the very beliefs that are holding us back. It shows us where healing is needed. It uncovers what we've buried deep inside. The need for validation, the fear of judgment, the pain of not feeling enough. When we face fear, instead of running from it, we begin to peel away the layers of false protection we've built over time, and beneath those layers lies the truth of who we are, capable, resilient, and far stronger than we imagine. Growth does not happen in the comfort zone. It happens in the space between hesitation and action, in the trembling moments when you decide to step forward even though fear still lingers. Every great transformation begins with that decision to face the reflection instead of avoiding it. When we confront fear, we learn its language. We begin to see that it was never trying to destroy us. It was trying to prepare us. It was saying, here is where you must become stronger. Here is where you must trust more deeply. When a woman learns to see fear as her mirror, her life begins to shift. She stops asking, why am I so afraid? And starts asking, what is this fear trying to teach me? That simple change in question turns anxiety into awareness, and awareness into empowerment. She begins to use fear as a guide, letting it show her where she needs courage, where she needs healing, and where she must take her next step. Over time, the very fears that once controlled her start to lose their grip. They no longer dictate her choices. They direct her growth. Fear then becomes not a chain, but a compass. It points toward our evolution, toward the version of ourselves we are meant to become. To face fear is to face truth. And when we finally understand that truth, we no longer see fear as a monster in the dark, but as a mirror reflecting the light we have yet to step into. Transformation begins the moment we become aware, the moment we stop running from fear and start observing it with honesty. Awareness is the gentle turning point in every journey of growth. It is the instant when we realize that fear is not a sign of weakness, but a signpost pointing towards something meaningful. Before awareness, fear feels like chaos. After awareness, it becomes information. It shows us where we are stuck, what we value, and what we truly long for. Without awareness, we keep fighting the same invisible battles, not realizing that the enemy isn't outside of us. It's the fear within that we haven't learned to understand. Awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. The objects inside haven't changed. The fear, the doubts, the insecurities are still there, but now you can see them for what they are. You begin to realize that many of your fears aren't even real threats. They're just stories your mind has been telling you to keep you safe. Awareness helps you separate truth from illusion. You notice how often you say, I can't, when what you really mean is, I'm scared. You begin to catch yourself choosing comfort over growth, silence over truth, hesitation over opportunity. Awareness gives you back the power to choose differently. Every great transformation starts from this quiet clarity. When you become aware of your fear, you stop being controlled by it. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond intentionally. You start asking questions. Why am I afraid of this? What am I really protecting myself from? What would happen if I moved through this fear instead of away from it? And with each honest answer, you grow lighter. You begin to take responsibility for your emotions instead of being ruled by them. That is where strength is born, not in pretending to be fearless, but in facing your fears with awareness and compassion. Awareness also teaches patience. We often want change to happen overnight, but true transformation takes time. When you're aware, you stop judging yourself for being afraid. You start understanding that fear is simply part of the human experience. You give yourself grace to grow at your own pace. You begin to notice small victories, the times you spoke up despite the tremble in your voice, the moments you chose to trust, even when uncertainty surrounded you. Awareness helps you celebrate progress instead of chasing perfection. And perhaps the most powerful gift of awareness is that it brings alignment between who you are and who you want to become. When you are aware of your fears, you begin to see that they are often connected to your deepest desires. The fear of failure shows how deeply you care about succeeding. The fear of rejection reveals how much connection matters to you. The fear of loss shows the depth of your love. Awareness transforms fear from something that limits you into something that guides you back to yourself. When a woman becomes aware of her fears, she begins the process of rewriting her story. She stops being the one who runs and becomes the one who observes, learns, and grows. She recognizes that awareness is not just the first step of transformation, it is transformation, because the moment she sees fear for what it truly is, it loses its power to define her. From that awareness blooms strength, clarity, and a quiet kind of courage that no storm can shake. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. Many people believe that brave individuals are those who feel no fear at all. But the truth is, courage exists only in the presence of fear. Without fear, courage has no purpose. It is easy to walk through calm waters, but it takes real strength to keep walking when the storm rises around you. Courage is that quiet voice inside that says, even though I'm scared, I will still take the next step. It is not loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just a whisper that refuses to be silenced. Every act of courage begins with a choice to step forward, even when the outcome is uncertain. Fear tells us to stay where it's safe, to avoid mistakes, to wait until we're ready. But courage says, you may never feel ready. Do it anyway. It is that moment when your heart beats fast, Your hands tremble, and your mind tells you to stop, but your soul says go. That's where transformation begins. When you walk with fear instead of running from it, you start to understand that fear cannot truly stop you unless you give it permission to. It only becomes a barrier when you believe it is one. Courage is not about having control. It's about surrendering to the unknown. It is about trusting that even if you fall, you'll learn how to rise again. When we wait for fear to disappear before acting, we end up waiting forever. The magic of courage lies in movement. Once you move, fear begins to fade. The first step may feel impossible, but it always carries more power than we think. The moment you act, fear loses a little of its grip and strength begins to take its place. The act of doing becomes the antidote to the paralysis of fear. Sometimes courage looks grand, like standing up for justice or speaking truth to power. But more often, it looks simple and unseen. It's getting out of bed on a difficult day. It's saying no when everyone expects a yes. It's allowing yourself to dream again after failure. It's forgiving someone who hurt you or forgiving yourself for the mistakes you made. Courage is quiet, gentle, and deeply personal. It shows up in the smallest moments, shaping the person you are becoming. Every small act of bravery strengthens the foundation of your character, until one day you realize that fear no longer controls your choices. It only informs them. When you choose courage, something beautiful happens. You start to trust yourself. You begin to see that you can survive discomfort, rejection, and even failure. Each time you move through fear, you build evidence of your own resilience. And over time, courage becomes less of a conscious decision and more of a way of living. You learn that fear may still whisper, but it no longer dictates your steps. You become guided by conviction instead of doubt. The truth is, courage doesn't always look confident. Sometimes it looks messy, uncertain, even shaky. But courage doesn't need perfection. It just needs presence. It's the willingness to show up, to take action, even when fear is standing beside you. Because in the end, courage doesn't erase fear. It transforms it. It turns the energy of fear into the fuel of growth. And the moment you choose to move forward, despite trembling, you begin to realize you are braver than you ever knew. Small steps are the quiet architects of great transformations. We often believe that success or courage comes from one grand, defining moment, a bold leap that changes everything overnight. But in truth, change rarely happens that way. It begins with small, consistent steps taken in the face of fear. Those small steps may seem insignificant at first, almost invisible, but they carry the power to reshape your life in ways you can't imagine. It is the simple decision to keep moving, even when progress feels slow, that eventually leads to powerful growth. Every great journey begins with a single step, and often that step is the hardest. The first attempt, the first conversation, the first act of faith, these are the moments that challenge us the most because they require us to act while uncertainty is loudest. Yet, once that first step is taken, something inside shifts. You begin to see that fear does not vanish all at once, but it weakens with movement. Each step forward builds momentum. Each act of courage makes the next one easier. It's like climbing a mountain from the bottom. It feels impossible. But once you take one small step upward, you realize the path is walkable. Small steps also teach patience. In a world obsessed with instant results, we often underestimate the value of steady progress. But transformation is not a race. It is a process of unfolding. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. It must root itself in the dark before it can reach for the light. Likewise, the woman who becomes fearless starts by taking one small action each day that challenges her comfort zone. Over time, those actions form habits, and those habits become strength. She begins to trust her own consistency more than her emotions, and that trust becomes her anchor. Another beauty of small steps is that they are achievable. Big dreams can feel intimidating. They make fear louder. But when you break those dreams into smaller, manageable actions, they suddenly become possible. Wanting to change your life can feel overwhelming. But deciding to wake up 10 minutes earlier, to speak one brave sentence, or to take one small risk, that is manageable. Those moments are like bricks. And each one you lay becomes part of the foundation of your future. Every small step also carries a hidden lesson. It teaches humility because you realize that progress requires persistence. It teaches discipline because you learn to show up even when no one is watching. And it teaches resilience because the journey will not always be smooth. There will be times you stumble, but every small effort ensures that when you fall forward, closer to who you are becoming. Growth doesn't require perfection, it requires persistence. And the most powerful thing about small steps, they create visible change, not just in your life, but within you. Each time you act in the presence of fear, your identity begins to shift. You stop identifying as someone who is scared and start seeing yourself as someone who can act despite fear. The small steps you once doubted eventually become the reason you can stand tall. When you look back, you realize that the journey wasn't made of leaps, but of tiny, determined steps, each one carrying the quiet power of transformation. In those small steps lies a secret to becoming everything you were once afraid of. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the foundation upon which success is built. Every person who has achieved something meaningful has walked through the valley of failure. Yet, most people spend their lives trying to avoid it, fearing that a single mistake defines their worth. In truth, failure is never the end of the road. It is simply a redirection a necessary part of learning and growing. It teaches us lessons that success never can. The pain of failure refines us, humbles us, and prepares us to handle the weight of the victories that await. Without failure, success would be shallow, it would lack wisdom, gratitude, and depth. When we fail, We are forced to confront our limitations. It's uncomfortable, even painful. But that discomfort is where transformation begins. Failure exposes our blind spots and forces us to look within. It challenges our assumptions, our habits, and our mindset. More than anything, it reveals our resilience. Because failure doesn't define us, our response to it does. Some people stop after falling once, believing that failure means the dream wasn't meant for them. Others rise, dust themselves off, and try again. And it's that second group who eventually discover what they're truly capable of. The difference lies not in talent, but in the willingness to continue despite disappointment. Failure is also the greatest teacher of humility. Success can sometimes make us proud, but failure keeps us grounded. It reminds us that growth is a journey, not a destination. It teaches us compassion, both for ourselves and for others who stumble. When we experience failure, we learn empathy because we understand how it feels to struggle. That empathy makes our eventual success richer because it's no longer just about achievement. It's about meaning. It becomes less about proving something and more about becoming something. Every failure carries within it the seed of wisdom. Each time something doesn't go as planned, we are presented with an opportunity to learn about our strategies, our patience, and our emotional strength. When a door closes, failure teaches us to look for another. When plans collapse, it teaches us to rebuild stronger. What once looked like an ending often becomes a beginning in disguise. Many people discover their purpose not in moments of triumph, but in the ashes of what they thought was their greatest defeat. Because failure strips away illusions and reveals what truly matters. There's also an incredible freedom in failure. Once you've failed and survived, you realize that the fear of failing was far more painful than failure itself. You begin to take bolder steps, make braver choices, and dream bigger dreams. You no longer let fear dictate your direction because you know that falling doesn't mean finished. It means you're still in motion, still trying, still alive. Failure turns fear into fuel. It builds resilience layer by layer until strength becomes second nature. The truth is, every successful story you've ever admired is stitched together with moments of failure. Behind every victory is a trail of rejection letters, closed doors, and sleepless nights. But those moments are not wasted. They are the foundation stones of character. Without them, success would have no roots. It is through failure that we discover endurance, creativity, and humility. And once we stop seeing failure as something to avoid and start seeing it as something to learn from, we unlock a deeper kind of power. The power to rise again, wiser and stronger than before. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences a person can face. Yet it is also one of the most powerful teachers life offers. It strips away illusions and forces us to confront an important truth: that our worth is not determined by who accepts us, but by how deeply we accept ourselves. Every no we encounter in life feels like a wound. But with time, we realize that those very wounds shape our strength. Rejection hurts because it challenges our need for belonging and validation. We all want to be seen, loved, and valued, but when we tie our sense of worth to external approval, we become fragile. True growth begins the moment we stop asking, "Why didn't they choose me?" and start asking, "Why do I need them to?" Rejection often feels like an ending, but it's really a redirection. It closes one path only to guide us toward another, one that aligns better with who we are meant to become. What seems like loss is often protection. A job we didn't get, a person who walked away, an opportunity that fell apart. Each of these rejections might have spared us from situations that didn't match our purpose. We don't see it at first because the pain blinds us. But as time passes, perspective blooms. We begin to see how life was never denying us, it was guiding us. Every closed door was leading us closer to the right one. The one that would open effortlessly when we were truly ready. The most powerful shift happens when we stop taking rejection personally. It's rarely a reflection of our worth. It's a reflection of alignment. Not everyone will understand us. Not every opportunity will fit. And not every dream will unfold the way we imagine. But none of that means we are less deserving. When rejection comes, it tests our foundation. It asks, can you still believe in your value when no one else sees it? Can you still love yourself when you feel unwanted? Those questions are not meant to break us. They are meant to awaken us. Because when you learn to affirm yourself in the absence of external validation, you become unstoppable. Rejection also teaches resilience. It teaches us to try again, to refine our craft, to grow thicker skin without hardening our heart. Each rejection becomes a training ground for strength. The sting of rejection lessens not because it stops happening, but because we learn to interpret it differently. We stop seeing it as a punishment and start seeing it as preparation. That shift in mindset is where self-worth is truly born. You begin to realize that being rejected by one thing doesn't mean you aren't good enough. It simply means you're meant for something different, something greater. The beauty of rejection is that it reveals what cannot be taken away, your authenticity. When people or circumstances say, no, you still have your integrity, your voice, your essence. And when you start valuing those things above approval, you begin to walk with quiet confidence. You no longer chase acceptance, you attract it naturally because you radiate self-assurance. Ironically, the moment you stop needing validation is the moment you receive it most effortlessly. Rejection then becomes a gift in disguise, a reminder to return to yourself. It teaches that worth is not found in being chosen, but in choosing yourself again and again, even after others don't. It reminds you that you were never meant to fit into every place or please every person. You were meant to stand in your truth, knowing that the right people, the right paths, and the right opportunities will recognize your light, not because you chased them, but because you never stopped shining, even when they turned away. Pain is one of life's greatest sculptors. It shapes us in ways comfort never can. When we experience pain, whether emotional or physical, it forces us to stop, reflect, and rebuild. Pain has a strange way of introducing us to ourselves. It reveals what truly matters, who truly cares, and how deeply we are capable of enduring. Well, no one seeks it. Pain often becomes the very force that awakens the strength we didn't know existed. It refines our character, strips away what's shallow, and teaches us resilience. When we refuse to give up in the face of pain, that very struggle transforms into purpose. Every wound becomes a lesson, every scar a story of survival. The truth is, pain changes everything, but not always in the way we fear. Sometimes it breaks us open so new wisdom can enter. The heartbreak that once shattered your world might later teach you what real love means. The failure that humiliated you might later build the foundation of your success. The loss that left you hollow might teach you how to appreciate the present more deeply. Pain, though difficult, has a sacred role in transformation. It is not meant to destroy us, but to purify us, to burn away illusions and make room for truth. The people who rise from pain are rarely the same as before. They emerge wiser, humbler, and stronger. When pain visits, our first instinct is often to run from it, to numb it or pretend it isn't there. But avoidance only prolongs suffering. Healing begins when we stop resisting and start listening. Pain speaks not through words, but through lessons. It tells us when something needs to change. It teaches patience when life slows down. It teaches empathy when we see others hurting. It teaches gratitude when we begin to notice that even in hardship, there are small blessings waiting to be acknowledged. Pain's message is never cruelty, it's clarity. It says, look closer, grow deeper, rise higher. The greatest transformations are often born from seasons of pain. When everything falls apart, we are forced to rebuild. But this time, more intentionally. Pain teaches us to rebuild not on ego, but on authenticity. We start setting boundaries where we once allowed chaos. We begin to value peace over validation. We learn to find joy not in perfection, but in progress. Pain refines our priorities. What once seemed urgent fades, and what truly matters, love, purpose, faith, kindness, becomes crystal clear. That clarity becomes the foundation for a more meaningful life. Every scar we carry is proof that we have endured and evolved. Instead of hiding our pain, we can honor it not as a weakness, but as a witness to our resilience. Each time we survive a difficult season, we become a source of light for someone else walking through darkness. Our pain becomes the bridge between our story and another's healing. When we use what once hurt us to help others, pain loses its power to harm us. It becomes power itself. So when pain comes, and it always will, we can choose to see it not as punishment, but as preparation. Every tear shed, every heartbreak endured, every setback faced, All of it has meaning. Pain may bend us, but it also builds us. It teaches us to rise from the ashes not as victims, but as victors. Because when we refuse to let pain break our spirit, it transforms into purpose. And that purpose becomes the light that guides not only our own path, but the paths of others who follow. Confidence is not something we are born with. It is something we build one action at a time. It doesn't appear suddenly like a spark. It grows quietly through effort, experience, and self-trust. Many people wait to feel confident before they take a step. But the truth is, action comes first. Confidence follows. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly believe in yourself. You learn to believe through the small victories you earn every day. Confidence is the result of keeping promises to yourself, of showing up even when doubt whispers that you shouldn't. Each time you face something difficult and survive, you add another brick to the foundation of your self-belief. Confidence is not arrogance or perfection. It is a quiet knowing that you can handle whatever comes. It's not about being the loudest in the room. It's about being sure of your worth, even in silence. True confidence doesn't shout, it radiates. It's born from a history of perseverance, from the times you failed but got up again, from the moments you were scared but still showed up. It's not something others can give you. It's something you must earn through your own courage. Every act of persistence becomes proof that you are capable, that you can trust yourself to keep going no matter what. The path to confidence begins with vulnerability. You can't build confidence while trying to avoid mistakes or rejection. You build it by allowing yourself to be imperfect, by trying anyway. When you take that first uncertain step, you prove to yourself that courage matters more than certainty. With each effort, no matter how small, your fear begins to shrink. The things that once intimidated you start to feel possible. That shift, when fear begins to lose its control, is the very essence of confidence being born. Confidence is not about always succeeding. It's about no longer being defined by failure. When you start viewing setbacks as lessons instead of defeats, you begin to see yourself differently. You no longer ask, "What if I fail?" Instead, you think, "Even if I fail, I'll learn, I'll grow, and I'll rise again." That mindset transforms you from someone who fears life into someone who faces it fully. The confidence isn't a product of perfection, it's the reward for resilience. One of the most empowering truths about confidence is that it is self-made. You can read books, listen to advice, and receive encouragement from others, but no one can hand it to you. Confidence grows from within, through lived experience, through repeated effort, through proving to yourself that you can rely on you. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, when you show up, stay disciplined, or take action despite fear, you're quietly telling your subconscious, "I can trust myself." That inner trust becomes the seed from which confidence blossoms. Over time, confidence changes how you walk through the world. You stop seeking validation because you already know your worth. You stop comparing your journey to others because you understand that your path is uniquely yours. You begin to make choices aligned with your values, not your fears. And as your confidence grows, so does your peace. You no longer need to prove yourself. You simply live as proof of your growth. Confidence, at its core, is the result of courage repeated. It's the quiet power that comes from knowing that even when you fall, you will rise. It is not a gift life gives you. It's a strength you forge through action, patience, and unwavering faith in your own becoming. And when that kind of confidence takes root within you, no fear, no rejection, and no failure can take it away.